wonderful to be here to celebrate 35 years of Arizona's oldest independent bookstore changing hands. Also, this bookstore is in the leadership of the whole independent bookstore media movement all over this country, leading this movement called Indie Bound. So it's always so wonderful to stop in here. This time, we're on a 70-city tour. Tonight, if you have any friends in Tucson, we'll be at the Convention Center in a ballroom there. Looking forward to celebrating KXCI and Access Tucson. Then in the morning, we'll be broadcasting from Tucson PBS. And anyone who has any suggestions for stories, feel free to email stories@democracynow.org. Then we fly off to Lawton, Oklahoma, a very interesting place. Fort Sill is where many of the war resistors, the soldiers who've said no to war, like Camilo Mejia, have been imprisoned, have been in the brig. On Tuesday morning, we'll be broadcasting from Lawton, and then we move on to College Station, Bryan, Texas. The next morning, we'll be broadcasting from Austin, and then we'll be heading to Dallas, and then to St. Louis, to Denver. They have a big green festival that's taking place. International law, why should we have to abide by it? And if you get into that, well, then you're surpassing your limit, and you're just not quite there yet. And what's the problem with just reinforcing the status quo? Global warring, global warming, the global economic meltdown, the lack of health care in this country, the crisis of immigration and the denigration and the vilification of people who come into this country. How many people have relatives, whether sisters, brothers, whether you yourself, whether your mother, whether your grandparents or your great-grandparents came to this country from another place? The majority. Now, I think that's very interesting. Where are your voices? Someone asked me the other day, what do I think of the mainstream media? I think it would be a good idea. And let's look at other issues, like war, like torture. So much in the headlines in the last week with the torture memos being released by the Obama administration. Frightening, terrifying. As we travel the country, you get what you just can't get researching when you're in one place. But all through California, lawyers were coming up to me and saying, do you know what we're doing about William Haynes, about Jay Bybee? Do you know what we're doing about John Yoo? I mean, you know, a lot of these lawyers are from California. I don't know what it is. I didn't say anything bad about California. I just came from there this morning, from Los Angeles. But we're in Northern California. We were interviewing a woman named Sharon Adams, who is a lawyer with National Lawyers Guild. We're actually having her on a totally different issue, which was 2 Northern California communities have passed the Youth Protection Act. One quite conservative community, one more progressive community, but both have passed it. And it says that recruiters cannot come into their communities and solicit young people, you know, underage. And the Justice Department is going after them now. And so it's a very interesting lawsuit that they have brought. And so the lawyer, Sharon Adams, we had her on, but meanwhile she was saying, you know, something else I'm involved with is trying to get the disbarring of William Haynes, one of the people involved with the torture memo. Well, that was interesting because the day before, a lawyer came up to me, also from the National Lawyers Guild, who said she was involved in a whole movement to have Jay Bybee, you know, he's the Justice Department lawyer who wrote one of the torture memos. He was then elevated to the bench, and they're trying to get him impeached. So we are seeing this now. John Yu, he teaches at UC Berkeley Law School, but he took leave and is now at Chapman Law School near Los Angeles. So these movements are growing. They're below the corporate media radar screen, but they are there. And it's so important we have a media that brings out these movements. Being here in Arizona, we will certainly cover the Walk for Respect, Stop the Cruelty March that is going to be happening on May 2nd, starting at the Wells Fargo Tower, ending at Tent City, because people, I think, are less aware of what's going on down here. We live in a globalized world. We're the most powerful country on earth, very sophisticated when it comes to communication and the internet and the newspapers and television. But when it comes to getting information in this country, we are so insulated. The media, what we need it to be. My brother David, I just left him in Los Angeles this morning, where he's speaking at the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books. How many of you saw C-SPAN yesterday? It was interesting. I was taking calls in the morning on C-SPAN and the C-SPAN bus for half an hour. And it sounded like it was people all along the way from the tour were calling in. We were just in Boise. Boise Community Radio is like Arizona Community Media. They have just, though, already gotten a full power license. It started with people wanting to get Democracy Now! In their community. It was amazing to see the level of organization there, how wonderful it was. They have the full power license, and obviously Democracy Now! Is an hour a day, but it means all of these hours for people to broadcast the voices of people in their own community every day. You are just perhaps about to get that here in Phoenix, which is so exciting. We were in Sandpint, Idaho. They just got a full power license. It started with wanting to broadcast Democracy Now! Now the whole community is coming together. What are the kind of voices? Who wants to do the programming? You can't become more media literate. There's nothing that makes you more media literate than making your own media. We were in Bozeman, Montana. They just got a full power license, and their station is called K-Listen, K-L-S-N. And there's a Spokane has a KYRS FM, LPFM. We broadcast from there at the beginning of last week, Spokane, Washington, and they applied for a full power, and they just got it. It's a movement all over this country as newspapers are shuttered, are closed. The Rocky Mountain News, after almost 150 years, survived the Depression, the floods, could not survive this economic downturn. The Seattle Post-Intelligencer closed. What I'm most concerned about is the closing out of local, regional voices, where the experts are, where the wealth is, the wealth of ideas, of experience, of wisdom. Community media, it's where it's at, which is why we're calling this tour Community Voices, Community Media. And it's not just for this each stop every day. We may not do the story you've sent to stories at democracynow.org this time around, but it feeds us and fuels us every day. Because wherever we are, we're going to the grassroots to look at what are the issues of importance in every community. Our second book, Static, we call it that because in this high-tech digital age with high-definition television and digital radio, still all we get is ever more static. That veil of distortion and lies and misrepresentations and half-truths that obscure reality. When what we need is the media to give us the dictionary definition of static. That's criticism, opposition, unwanted interference. We need a media that covers power, not covers for power. We need a media that is the fourth estate, not for the state. And we need a media that covers the movements that create static and make history. We need a free media. Now, I've been saying that for quite a while. I didn't think as much we'd have to say we have to free the media, but yes, we do. I mean, let's just look at what happened at the Republican convention. This summer, I don't know how many of you heard Democracy Now!'s coverage of the Democratic and Republican conventions. We expanded to 2 hours. It was called Breaking with Convention, War, Peace, and the Presidency, from the streets to the suites to the convention floor. We flew into Denver. It was very interesting in Denver. Right before the